The security camera caught it all. Corinne's face twisted with rage as she screamed at the teenage cashier, her manicured finger jabbing the air like a weapon. What started as a routine complaint about expired coupons spiraled into something darker. When she made one fatal mistake, she threatened the wrong person's daughter. 20 minutes later, sirens wailed outside the grocery store, but it wasn't the teenager being led away in handcuffs. Sometimes karma doesn't wet sometimes. It strikes with the swift, merciless. The fluorescent lights of Save Mart buzzed overhead like angry wasps as Karen Brennan slammed her purse onto the checkout counter. Rattling the candy display, the force sent several chocolate bars tumbling to the floor, but she didn't notice or care. This is absolutely ridiculous. Her voice cut through the late afternoon quiet like a blade. These coupons are perfectly valid. 16-year-old Maya Rodriguez stood frozen behind the register, her dark eyes wide with the kind of fear that comes from being trapped with nowhere to run. The crumpled coupons in her trembling hands were clearly expired, some by months, but Karen's fury had escalated far beyond reason. "Ma'am, I'm really sorry, but the system won't accept these. They expired in March, and it's already June. Don't you dare lecture me about dates, you little." Karen's voice dropped to a venomous hiss. "I've been shopping here since before you were born. My husband's law firm represents half this town. One phone call from me, and you'll be flipping burgers for the rest of your miserable life." Maya's supervisor, Mrs. Chen, hurried over from customer service, her sensible shoes squeaking against the linoleum. "Is there a problem here?" Karen whirled around, her perfectly styled blonde hair whipping across her face. "Your incompetent employee is refusing to honor my coupons. This is discrimination, pure and simple. Let me take a look." Mrs. Chen examined the tattered pieces of paper with practiced diplomacy. "I'm afraid these are quite expired, Mrs. Brennan, Karen Brennan. And I don't care if they're expired. Good customer service means making exceptions for loyal customers." She leaned forward, invading Mrs. Chen's personal space. "Unless, of course, you want me to call the corporate office and explain how this store treats people who matter in this community." The threat hung in the air like smoke from a gun barrel. Other customers had begun to notice the commotion, forming a loose semicircle of uncomfortable witnesses. Some held up phones, the telltale red recording dots glowing like tiny eyes. Maya stepped back until her shoulder blades pressed against the cigarette display. "I'm sorry, ma'am, I really am, but I could get in trouble if I override the system." "Without proper authorization, get in trouble." Karen's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Honey, you haven't seen trouble yet. What's your name?" I don't have to tell you that." "Oh, you absolutely do." Karen's voice rose another octave. "Because when I file my complaint with Corporatand, I will lie and want to make sure they know exactly which little immigrant caused all this hassle." The word hit Maya like a physical blow. Her face flushed red, and tears began to gather in the corners of her eyes. Several customers shifted uncomfortably, but nobody moved to intervene. Mrs. Chen stepped protectively in front of Maya. "Ma'am, that kind of language is completely inappropriate. I'm going to have to ask you to. Don't tell me what's inappropriate." Karen slammed her palm against the counter again, this time sending a display of lip balm cascading to the floor. "This store's customer service is what's inappropriate. This girl's attitude is what's inappropriate." Maya's voice came out as barely a whisper. "Please, I just want to do my job." "Your job?" Karen's eyes glittered with malicious satisfaction. "Your job is whatever I say it is, little girl. And right. Now, your job is to honor my coupons or find someone who will." That's when Detective Rosa Martinez walked through the automatic doors. She'd stopped by Spomart on her way home from a double shift, still wearing her badge and service weapon, looking forward to nothing more than grabbing some groceries and collapsing on her couch. The raised voices had caught her attention. Immediately, cop instincts never fully switched off. But it was the sight of her daughter pressed against the cigarette display, tears streaming down her face, that made her blood run cold. Rosa had worked homicide for 12 years. She'd seen the worst humanity had to offer. Faced down armed criminals without flinching, and testified against gang members who threatened her family. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared her for the rage that exploded in her chest. When she saw Karen Brennan pointing an accusatory finger at Maya's face, ... and if you can't understand basic English, maybe you should go back where you came from. The words echoed through the store like a gunshot. Several customers gasped audibly. Someone's phone clattered to the floor. Rosa moved with the fluid precision of a predator closing in on prey. Her footsteps were silent against the linoleum, years of tactical training evident in every measured step. She positioned herself directly behind Karen, close enough to smell the woman's expensive perfume mixed with the sharp scent of perspiration and fury. "Excuse me," the voice was calm, controlled, and absolutely terrifying in its restraint. Karen spun around, ready to unleash her venom on this new target, but the words died in her throat when she found herself staring at a badge. Detective Rosa Martinez stood 6 feet tall in her boots, with the kind of presence that commanded attention. Without demanding it, her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her brown eyes held the steady gaze of someone who'd looked into the abyss and stared it down. The badge clipped to her belt caught the fluorescent light, but it was the gun holstered at her hip that made Karen take an involuntary step backward. "Is there a problem here?" Rosa's voice remained perfectly level, but anyone with sense would have recognized the danger lurking beneath the surface. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She glanced around the store, suddenly aware of all the phones pointed in her direction, all the witnesses to her behavior. This girl, was being rude to me. "I'm just trying to use my coupons, Mom." Maya's voice was small and uncertain. Rosa's eyes flicked to her daughter, taking in the tear-stained cheeks and trembling hands before returning to Karen with laser focus. "I see. And what exactly did this rude behavior consist of?" "She wouldn't accept my coupons. And when I tried to explain the situation, she became very disrespectful." "I was just trying to, ma'am." Rosa held up one hand, and Karen's voice cut off, as if someone had thrown a switch. "I'm going to need you to step back from my daughter." The word daughter hung in the air like a thunderclap. Karen's face went through several shades of pale before settling on a sickly green sheet looked back and forth between Rosa and Maya, her mind clearly struggling to process this new information. "Your ... daughter." "That's right." Rosa moved to stand beside Maya, placing one protective hand on the girl's shoulder. "The same daughter you've been screaming at for the past 10 minutes. The same daughter you just told to go back where she came from." Around them, the store had gone completely quiet, except for the persistent buzz of the fluorescent lights and the soft whir of security cameras capturing every moment. IDN, single quotes, T ... I mean, IWASN, single quotes, Karen stammered. She was being difficult. "About my coupons, I have rights as a customer." "You absolutely do have rights," Rosa agreed, her voice still maintaining that dangerous calm. "But you don't have the right to verbally abuse a minor. You don't have the right to make racial slurs. And you certainly don't have the right to threaten my daughter's livelihood because you're having a bad day." "I never made any racial. I heard what you said." Rosa's eyes swept the crowd of onlookers. "We all heard what you said, and fortunately, for everyone involved, this entire interaction has been recorded by approximately 8 different phones and the store's security system." Karen's gaze darted to the cameras mounted in the corners, their red lights blinking steadily. Her face crumpled as the full weight of her situation began to sink in. "Look, maybe we can work this out," she said, her voice losing its earlier venom. "I was just frustrated. You know how it is, customer service isn't what it used to be. I didn't mean anything personal. Rosa stepped closer, and despite her badge and training, there was something purely maternal and ferocious in her expression. "You called my 16-year-old daughter an immigrant and told her to go back where she came from. You threatened her job. You made her cry. How exactly is that not personal?" Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Mom, it's okay. I just want to forget about it." Rosa's voice softened when she addressed her daughter, but her eyes never left Karen's face. "It's not okay. This woman needs to understand that her behavior has consequences." Karen straightened her shoulders, some of her earlier arrogance returning. "Are you threatening me, officer, detective?" Rosa corrected. "And I don't make threats, I make arrests." The words sent a chill through the store. Karen laughed nervously, the sound high and brittle. "Arrest me? For what? I haven't done anything illegal." Rosa pulled out her phone and scrolled through something briefly. "Let's see. Harassment of a minor, disturbing the peace, destruction of property." The holding cell at the Millbrook police station smelled like disinfectant and despair. Karen Brennan sat on the narrow bench, her designer blouse wrinkled and stained with tears, her manicured nails chipped from gripping the cell bars. 3 hours had passed since her arrest, and the reality of her situation was finally beginning to sink in. Her phone call to her husband had gone straight to voicemail, not surprising, considering he'd served her divorce papers that morning. Her second call to her sister had been even worse. "Karen, I saw the video," Linda had said, her voice tight with disgust. "It's already been shared 8,000 times on Facebook. What were you thinking?" "I wasn't thinking," Karen had whispered into the phone. "I was just so angry about everything, Richard. The job, everything falling apart. I took it out on the wrong person." "You screamed at a child, Karen. You called her racial slurs. On camera, there's no coming back from this." The dial tone had echoed in her ear like a death knell. Now, as she sat in the sterile cell, Karen could hear the bustle of activity beyond the barred door. Officers processed paperwork, phones rang constantly, and she caught fragments of conversations. That made her stomach churn. Channel 7 wants a statement about the Save Mart incident. Video's gone viral, over 50,000 shares now. Double quotes. Lawyers here for the Brennan woman. Karen's head snapped up. Her lawyer was here, but she hadn't called anyone else. Her husband's firm had represented her in the past, but given the circumstances, she doubted Richard would authorize any help. The heavy door to the holding area opened with a metallic clang, and Officer Jenkins appeared with a man Karen didn't recognize. He was young, maybe 30, with an ill-fitting suit and nervous energy that screamed public defender. "Mrs. Brennan. I'm David Walsh, your court-appointed attorney. We need to talk." Karen's heart sank. Court-appointed meant her husband definitely wasn't paying for representation. She was truly on her own. Walsh pulled up a chair outside the cell, his expression grim. "I'm going to be straight with you, Mrs. Brennan. This is bad. Really bad." "How bad?" "The video of your incident has been viewed over 200,000 times in the past 3 hours. Local news has picked it up, and it's trending on Twitter. The hashtag #SaveMart Karen is gaining traction." Karen felt bile rise in her throat. Twitter. That's not the worst part. Walsh opened his briefcase and pulled out a tablet. "The police have security footage from multiple angles, plus recordings from at least 8 witnesses. The evidence is overwhelming." He showed her the screen, and Karen watched herself in horror. The camera had captured everything: her aggressive posture, her jabbing finger the moment she'd knocked over the displays. But it was the audio that made her want to disappear entirely, her voice, shrill and venomous, telling Maya to go back. Where she came from, "I sound like a monster," she whispered. "You acted like one," Walsh replied bluntly. "And now we have to deal with the consequences." The DA is considering multiple charges: harassment, ethnic intimidation, disturbing the peace, and destruction of property. What does that mean for me? If convicted on all charges, you're looking at potential jail time, heavy fines, and a permanent criminal record. But that's not your biggest problem right now. Karen's blood ran cold. "What's my biggest problem?" Before Walsh could answer, the door opened again. This time, it was Detective Martinez, but she wasn't alone. A woman in an expensive suit walked beside Hertel, confident, with the kind of presence that commanded attention. "Mrs. Brennan?" Detective Martinez said, her voice professionally neutral. "This is District Attorney Rebecca Chen. She'd like to speak with you." Karen's eyes widened. The DA herself. That couldn't be good. DA Chen stepped forward, her gaze cool and assessing. "Mrs. Brennan, I'm here to inform you that my office has reviewed the evidence in your case, and we've made a decision regarding prosecution." "Already," Walsh interjected. "The arrest was only 3 hours ago. When the evidence is this clear-cut, Mr. Walsh, decisions come quickly." Chun's attention returned to Karen. "We're filing charges for harassment of a minor, ethnic intimidation, disturbing the peace, and destruction of property. Additionally, we're exploring federal hate crime charges." The words hit Karen like a physical blow. "Federal charges? Your..." Comments to Ms. Rodriguez were caught on multiple recordings and have been widely disseminated on social media. The FBI's Civil Rights Division has expressed interest in the case. Karen gripped the bars of her cell, her knuckles white. "This is insane. I said some things I shouldn't have, but I'm not a criminal. I'm not a racist. I was just having a bad day. DeChun's expression didn't change. Mrs. Brennan, I've been a prosecutor for 15 years. I've heard every excuse, every justification, every sob story. But you know what I've learned? People's true character comes out when they think nobody important is watching. She pulled out her own tablet and showed Karen the screen. This is the video of your interaction with Maya Rodriguez. Would you like to know what I see when I watch it? Karen shook her head, but Chen continued anyway. I see a grown woman terrorizing a child. I see someone using racial slurs against a minor who was trying to do her job. I see someone who thought her perceived social status gave her the right to abuse others. Chun's voice grew colder. What I don't see is someone having a bad day. I see someone revealing who they really are. That's not who I am, Karen protested. Weakly, isn't it? Detective Martinez stepped forward. Because I've done some research on you, Mrs. Brennan. This isn't your first complaint about customer service. You've been banned from 2 restaurants in town for verbally abusing servers. You filed discrimination complaints against 3 different retail stores when you didn't get your way. There's a pattern here. Karen's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Just moments of frustration that everyone would surely understand. But those were different, she stammered. Those were legitimate complaints, were they? Martinez consulted her notepad. Like when you called the manager at Olive Garden a worthless immigrant because they wouldn't give you a discount. Or when you told the teenage cashier at Target that she was too stupid to work in America because she couldn't override the computer system. Each revelation hit Karen like a slap. She'd thought those incidents were forgotten, buried in the past. She'd never imagined they would come back to haunt her. Chen closed her tablet with a sharp click. The truth is, Mrs. Brennan, you've been building a reputation in this community for years. Today, you just did it in front of cameras. What happens now? Walsh asked, his voice resigned. Now, Mrs. Brennan goes before a judge for her arraignment. Given the severity of the charges and the public attention this case has generated, I'll be requesting significant bail. Karen felt the world spinning around her. How much bail? That's up to the judge. But I can tell you that cases involving racial motivation and crimes against minors are taken very seriously in this jurisdiction. As the DA prepared to leave, Karen made one last desperate attempt. Wait, please. I know I messed up, but I'm willing to make amends. I'll apologize, too. The girl, I'll do community service. I'll pay for any damages. Can't we work something out? Chen paused at the door. Mrs. Brennan, do you know why I became a prosecutor? Karen shook her head. Because I believe that people who use their privilege to harm others need to face consequences. You didn't just hurt Maya Rodriguez today. You hurt every person of color who's ever been told they don't belong in their own country. You hurt every teenager who's ever been terrorized by an adult who should know better. She stepped closer. To the cell, your offer to apologize is noted. But it's too little, too late. The damage is done, and now you get to live with the consequences. After Chen and Martinez left, Karen slumped against the wall of her cell. Walsh remained behind, his expression sympathetic but realistic. What are my chances, she asked quietly, of avoiding conviction? Minimal. The evidence is overwhelming, and the public attention makes it impossible for the DA to offer any kind of plea deal that doesn't include jail time. How much jail time? Best case scenario, 6 months in county jail, probation, anger management classes, and a substantial fine. Worst case, if the federal charges stick, you could be looking at years in federal prison. Karen closed her eyes, trying to process the magnitude of her situation. How did this happen? How did 20 minutes of my life destroy everything? Because those 20 minutes revealed who you really are, Walsh said gently. And in today's world, there are cameras everywhere. One mistake can follow you forever. The sound of approaching footsteps interrupted their conversation. Officer Jenkins appeared again, this time accompanied by a woman Karen didn't recognize, professional, with a kind of purposeful stride that suggested she wasn't here for a social visit. Mrs. Brennan, this is Sarah Kim from Channel 7 News. She'd like to ask you a few questions. Karen's blood ran cold. I don't want to talk to any reporters. Actually, Walsh interrupted, it might be in your best interest to make a statement. Show some remorse. Take responsibility for your actions. It might help at sentencing. Sarah Kim stepped forward, her expression neutral but alert. "Mrs. Brennan, I understand you've had a difficult day. Would you like to share your side of the story, Karen? Look,